hosts, Nina Soul
And Patrick Wilson.
of Elements, a monthly dance ritual based in Oakland, California, centered around deep and soulful Black House music. In this podcast, we host conversations with artists and creatives on dance culture. Welcome to Can You Feel It? Dance Culture Conversations. I'm your host, Nina Soul. This is,
Patrick Wilson.
and we have an incredible, beautiful, talented soul with us today.
Yes.
Sabine, Blaizin.
So honored, so excited to have you with us. Sabine threw down an incredible masterclass of a set last night,
Thank you.
and the vibrations were so high.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to take some time to chat and get to know, the beautiful soul behind, the names Sabine Blaizin we hear.
Yes.
And we always like to start off these conversations with a question. Who is Sabine?
Wow.
Blaizin?
Great question. Thank you. Who is Sabine? I am a sound maker. I am a conduit. I am the daughter of Jean Solange Blaizin and Mark Serge Blaizin. But a DJ, music producer, event curator. I also see myself as an artivist, an Afrofuturist, a Pan-Africanist. Yeah.
Love it, love it. And can you tell us just a little bit more about your upbringing and what were some of your, experiences musically that, have
Yeah.
made you who you are today?
Oh, I was born and raised in the Boogie Down Bronx to Haitian parents. And I eventually over time just was really inspired by my immediate cousins that I grew up with. Who I saw as like my brother and sister, but I was very envious when I would see them dress up in certain outfits, go out to the clubs. They would play this music in the house, and I was just naturally wanting to move my body and dance. Of course, it was house music, right? And then I always begged them to go to the clubs with them or to hang out with their friends. Actually, one of my cousin's friends was like, "We should bring her with us. She loves music and dance," but they didn't allow me to go. Fast forward, once I graduated high school, I moved to the village. I went to the new school. And once I was able to live in the village and the dorms, that's when I really blossomed and just explored different clubs at the time, which had both a hip hop and R&B room and a house room. And, I was just like a free spirit. So I was a poet, I was an MC, eventually joined this all female crew. Shout out to Anomalies. And then we would just go to different venues to either perform or to party. And with that, like I had a really deep love for like the poetry and hip hop scene at that time, but also house music. And as a break dancer and part of this crew, I always slipped into the house music room, right? And I just really love seeing the freedom in dance. So there was breakers there. I saw this thing that at the time I didn't really know was capoeira, um, voguing, whacking, lofting, all of those beautiful forms of dance. Then I got really interested in capoeira and started taking some classes as well. But just like the underground New York music scene, once I got to college, gave me the opportunity to explore different genres of music. And then I really wanted the music that I heard in the clubs. Then it took me back to the music that I heard growing up at home. So I'm like, where can I get this music? Right. And at the time, there's a resurgence now, but there was a lot of vinyl record stores. So I would live literally in between classes at dance tracks and other vinyl stores. I also Tower Records, just random places like in the Village area and the Lower East Side, and would just be there for hours. That was like my release. That was my just way to zone out. And I often listened to B-sides of records. And at the time, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna be this DJ. It was just because I had the love for the music. But that was also a hangout spot for a lot of DJs and producers. Then I started reading the labels more. Like, I want to follow this producer or this DJ more. And that's when I really got hip to particular names of the sound of music that I really, really liked. Whether it was from Joe Clausel, Louis Vega, Ocean Lade, Jeff De Guillaume, etc. And in retrospect, it was really the DJs and producers that intentionally put African diasporic sounds or Afro-Cuban chants. And, at the time, I didn't know specifically who those artists were, whether they were samples or live musicians. But that was like my sensibility to like the house music that I really like to dance to or like to listen to. I always say my first DJ was also my father because at home every weekend, particularly on Sundays, he would just play vinyl, right? It wasn't like a whole DJ setup. But definitely grew up listening to compa, right? Listening to Racine music, like Haitian roots music. But my father had a plethora of like Afro Caribbean music, right? So it could go from compa to salsa. He loves soul and R&B and classics. So I grew up with that. My father also loved hip hop, but I particularly remember him really loving LL Cool J for some reason. So that vinyl, like seeing images of LL Cool J, um, anyway, there's a funny story around that because he was singing to my mother, "I need love," uh, but just that, growing up with my cousins, listening to house music, then going in the village and going to school and just like being a geek, and just loving culture and music. I had my backpack, my locks. I was going everywhere, every club, and just a form of expression and finding myself through the music and art. I think also growing up in the Bronx, I had that energy and vibe as well. So, yeah, yeah.
That sounds like a time
It
to
was a
be
good era.
alive.
It was a good era in New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had one question that I was going to start with, but I
Yeah.
think you actually probably touched on it.
Okay.
That being who you were influenced by as far as
Yes.
DJs and
Yes.
producers. I know you mentioned Louis Vega and Joe
Hmm.
Classell and Yefte.
Yeah.
Um, I was wondering, I know you produce music as well.
Yes.
Were you heavily influenced by these producers as well? Joe
Oh,
Classell?
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I just had a lot of rhythms in my head. In that exploratory phase of like underground New York and music. So another part of my life was also being part of various bands, mostly Afro Puerto Rican, Afro Dominican, Afro Haitian, a lot of live musicians that were like of my generation. We just rotated between different bands if you played a particular instrument. Um, but that was intentional and me just connecting with like my roots, right? And my friends and my tribe and circle were into that too, so we were all like, multi-genre, multifaceted artists in that way. um so yeah, so in playing those rhythms and learning those rhythms, right, especially traditional Haitian rhythms, and by playing the drums, the cowbell, the shaker, I always wanted to bring that part of my life to the house scene.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started hearing those similar rhythms, right, maybe in different syncopations, whether it's Afro Cuban versus Afro Haitian, and I started hearing producers having that in their tracks, I was like, that would be my contribution as a producer in the house scene. Just like with DJing, I didn't really see myself as a DJ. I was just collecting music that, wasn't readily accessible unless you bought the vinyl, right, at the time. Same thing with production. It was like I had all these rhythms and patterns, but I didn't know anything about like software or things like that. So, like, either DJ friends or some of the circles I was a part of, I just started asking questions, and got Logic Pro and then eventually Ableton. Um, and I'm always a student, always, right? Just to learn more and to perfect the craft. But I partnered with another artist who's also a percussionist, a vocalist, MC back in the day as well, Okai Music. And, we just were building on like, what if we brought these Afro Haitian rhythms into house? Like, bet, let's do it. So literally our studio sessions were jam sessions, right? And there's particular rhythms in Haitian traditional music that's a certain pattern. Like, that's just what it is. Whether it's Mai, um, Congo. So those are some of the rhythms that we translated into our tracks, which eventually, most recently in May, we put out the full package. But it's been over like about 6 to 8 years worth of like producing songs here and there, having various vocalists and artists and samples from Afro Puerto Rican artists and Haitian artists, traditional Haitian songs. Learned a lot through that process around sampling, publishing, writing, composing. So it really opened my eye to this whole world of productions, another headspace from DJing, which I loved, to learn. But when we finally found that magic sauce to combine the two, I was like, yes. So that sort of became like my niche, right? And part of my brand as well. And I'm excited just to see what the future holds in terms of my sound, because originally a lot of the vinyl that I brought or listened to before I even decided to be a DJ was really like deep tech, Afro tech. So that's sort of another iteration that I want to explore as well in production.
Yeah. Can you like tell us more about like what is the Haitian music tradition like, and what are the elements that you're trying to bring into the sound that you produce?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Haitian music has such a rich and long history. Um, and it's not like a monolith in a way, like very black and white. It's Caribbean wide. I mean, its roots is definitely stems from Africa, right? But when you think of compa, when you think of merengue, when you think of cadence, like all of this history around compa that I had to learn myself, because you're not really particularly taught this in school and or in your immediate family. It's just like part of your culture. Salsa, a lot of it comes from the basic rhythm patterns that are in cadence and compa, right? And in looking at, you know, the socio-political nature between, Dominicans and Haitians or Cubans and Puerto Ricans. Like, we have so much in common, not only from our indigenous and African roots, but even the rhythms of our music, if you really know the history of it. A lot of them are based off of the particular regions of Africa that the rhythms translated from, but how the Caribbean population made it their own, right? Um, but you'll see the connections and the polyrhythms. And if you're really like deep into like the history and research or a musicologist, you could follow the trace and that lineage and that history. And I sort of geek out of and learning so much about it. It's so vast and rich, and I learned something around that history and culture every day, the more that I explore these rhythms. But as someone that was in bands, there's particular rhythms for particular songs, deities, regions of Haiti, that, I incorporate in the music intentionally, especially if there's a particular song that speaks to a spirit or an element of nature or something to that effect, and the energy that you want to invoke, but you also have to stay true to what that rhythm represents within our tradition. So those are all the things I have to balance and learn. But I'm also feeling that through house and electronic music, I'm sort of like the next generations of generations to come, right? And preserving that richness, but also evolving it, right? So yeah, like it's such a beautiful thing, especially when I hear music. I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a Haitian rhythm that I know, but of course I know its roots and its lineage come from Africa, right? So yeah.
I've always been curious. Um, are you aware, or is there a scene that you know of in Haiti where they listen to electronic dance music? That's
Oh yeah.
okay, okay,
Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh my goodness. I can't even keep up. I can't keep up what's happening in Haiti. It's so dope. But what comes to mind is Gaga Tech. Gaga is like our carnival s street procession music with like the metal horns, right? That you typically see in like Haitian street festivals or carnival, right? And tech is just that tech part. So combining those rhythms together, there's amazing producers, DJs now that I've been influenced by as well, like Gori Jiwo, Manito Nation, Colo. I'm just naming a few that are holding it down traditionally and bringing their own style and flavor to it. Just like with any other genres of Black music, we you know recreate, we invent styles and sounds. There's guyad, there's all this beautiful like music, but it's also connected to a particular dance or just like an element of a party as well. But Haiti is rich with sounds and rhythms and the evolution of music. But what I really love about my generation, the generation that's coming up after me, like now, even the young folks, is that they're unapologetic. Like they tap into their roots sometimes more than their elders. Don't kill me, mom and dad. Would just be intentionally like, I want that real roots music in our sound, right? I think there's both appreciation from elders, but just like diehard, truest uh, to particular cultures and sounds. They may not be down with like the evolution through electronic music. But so far from what I've seen and experienced myself, especially when you DJ a Haitian party, right? You got to ease them in, right? And then you get that remix of that traditional compa song that's like a compa tech. We got them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you see them do the dances. And I love the appreciation of all generations at parties like that. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You know, when I think about Haiti, I think about a land of liberation, and you
Yes.
can't not think about like the political landscape, the history, the prominence of like the independence movement. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, it sounds like what you're talking about with the young people, like how they're really connected to their roots.
Yeah.
And, I think when I think about house music, I think about freedom. I
Mm-hmm.
think about
Definitely.
as, a space for us to like really be embodied in a different in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, yeah, like how you see that coming through in your music.
Mm. Wow. Definitely. I think my nature, I just love my people. It is, I just love my people. That's the first thing that came to mind. And when I say my people, I mean Black people, like in all shades, forms, fashion throughout the world. We're just magical. We're magical and very connected, whether we're aware of it or not, to the source. So with that, and a lot of my work is very social justice based, right? And or just has a clear message, whether it's from my spiritual practices, whether it's from my immediate traditional cultural arts, and other various traditions. That's what I want to come across in terms of my art. And, I want joy. I want freedom. I want sovereignty, ownership. I want to illustrate strong Black women in electronic music.
Yes.
You know, I want all of those things to be embodied in my work, in my brand, Oya Sound, but also paying tribute to my ancestors at the same time. And in a non stereotypical way, in a way that I will not compromise myself, in terms of money and gigs and traveling and, various other opportunities where they'll have control over your craft, right? And or cater it because of a trend that's happening in the moment. And I go by spirit. I first started as, a geek, a dancer, exploring this beautiful world, our club scene. I'm a true house head. And if that has to be illustrated in my work. And I feel like it's a contribution in my way of translating, but also giving back to the culture and enriching it, right? And that's the beauty of house music. That is such a beautiful open canvas that all elements of Black music could be incorporated. And when you think of the roots of house music, it comes from the underground, it comes from Black people, it comes from people who didn't want to be defined. Whether it's queer, whether it's people who felt like they were accepted in society, we found our way through the pressures to create this beautiful diamond of a music. So, of course, my interpretation and just who I am within house music and how I found my creative freedom was through house and led by my ancestors and spirit guides and the creator, right? And of course, I see the correlation and the connection between my traditional Haitian roots and house because they both represent the same thing of freedom, like you were saying, right? Um, Haiti is the freedom home of the African diaspora, period.
Period.
If it wasn't for Haiti, and it's not about me just like bigging up my culture, it's not about that, is what symbolically Haiti represents. The first Black independent nation, which was a catalyst of revolutions around the world amongst many cultures. That to this day, if you research the flags of certain countries, they're in the colors, they're in the spirit of Haiti. Bolivia is one. People don't, that's not what you got to learn in school. So it's not only just aesthetic, it's really deep root history. And the expression of that in one way is through music, right? And seeing those connections between various cultures and the influence of Haiti in that way. Of course, when you think of African Americans, when you think of the South, New Orleans alone is little Haiti.
Right.
Is it North Carolina, South Carolina? They had a town called Haiti, Hayti. There's such a large history. The quote unquote freedom of the United States couldn't happen without Haitians in the Revolutionary War. So there's so much when you just research one island. But we were displaced Africans from West Africa, and it just so happened that in the island of Quisqueya, Haiti today, Haiti, the land of mountains, we found our freedom. And we were the symbol and the catalyst for Nat Turner, for other places throughout the Caribbean. So I say all that because within this music, it's the same thing for me. Haiti is the root, Haiti is the source, and I'm always going to represent that in my brand, but also it's the conduit of me learning all these various beautiful rhythms throughout the diaspora. And this is just a beginning from what I've created with these songs, with this album. But I've learned so much. I've learned so much. I've been influenced by amazing producers and DJs who've incorporated their Puerto Rican background, their Cuban background, their Brazilian background. Even producers from Germany and from Europe, where they use their traditional language, especially when you think of techno and EDM, of course, influenced by Detroit and the Black underground movement there, but how they built off of that too. I'm more interested in how you incorporate yourself authentically in the music as opposed to appropriating.
Yeah.
But if you're able to do that, and I hear it and I know that it's translated through the music, that's what I'll play. That's what I'll give homage to. That's who I'll support and buy their music. And it's a global thing, and house music is just it's incredible to be able to incorporate all of that.
And
Yeah.
it's felt in your records, girl.
Ah.
You play it and you feel all of it.
Thank you.
I'm sure I mentioned to you last night while you were playing. I really, really, really enjoyed your set.
Thank you.
I enjoyed your energy.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed the music. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to your album,
Shame on you, Patrick. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
but I'm pretty sure you probably played a few selections from your album.
Yeah, I did.
Can you tell me a little bit about the album, your process,
Sure.
how you approach working on the album?
Yes.
If there were, you had, musicians or
Yeah.
additional producers assisting you.
Yeah.
Could you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I think this is great. So now you have more of a context when you actually listen to the music with like the history and the rhythms. So the album is called Tonight We Fly, I Swear Na Vole, and it's a combination of Haitian roots and house music, mainly Afro house. And oh my gosh, had incredible artists that again were in the studio, and we had jam sessions and ideas developed there. And then also Okai Musique, my co-producer. He's in several different bands as a percussionist, a vocalist, producer as well. And he introduced me to some of the artists that are on the album. So between him and I, we just brainstormed, ooh, wouldn't it be dope to have so and so on this track? Our first track that I played last night called Recote is a track that was sampled from a traditional Haitian song. Actually, a Haitian man and Puerto Rican woman sang the song. It was originally inspired by a project idea by a Haitian house dancer, Nubian Nene, as she was part of Haiti Cultural Exchange Fellowship, which I was as well. And she wanted to do a piece as part of her fellowship and honoring the land and agriculture, but wanted to invoke the spirit of our lois, which in Haitian Creole is like our Haitian deities in the voodoo tradition. And there's one particular loa called Zaka, right? He's a farmer, he's an agriculturist. And Recolte means harvest in Haitian Creole. So she had the traditional song and she asked Okai and I to produce it and make it into house. I was like, bet, that's the challenge. We were like, yes. So that happened to be our first track. It was a process because that's where I really learned about sampling. And the song is so traditional that we had to go through this process through the Smithsonian, etc. But we did it and got all the rights to produce the song. And that's when I caught the bug. I was like, this is amazing. But some of the other tracks, we're just gonna have live singers. So we started thinking of people in our community, and there's a beautiful singer, Sheila Nozier. She is an artist, like a visual artist. She's also a traditional Haitian dancer, and just a beautiful, beautiful musician. and really knew Okai. And then I met her, and that was it. A song called Loi Nandlo. So Loi is the deity, right? Nandlo means in water. So it was in homage to water energy, spirits, and she redid a traditional song, Loi Nandlo. So that track on the album, a lot of people actually, everyone has their favorite track, but Luana and Dloa, a lot of people love that track as well. Um, yeah, so we've performed it a couple of times during my sets. We have a videotaped performance that we did on BronxNet that's online. She's an amazing actress as well, and she's in a film that came out called Mountains. And that was when I really got to see her in her craft as an actress. So artists like that is multifaceted, talented, has sort of become part of this Oya Sound family and making these tracks and an album. We have Paul Bourbon that comes from a legendary family, Bookman experience. They're like traditional Racine. Racine means roots in Haitian Creole band that I grew up listening to. So it was an honor to have him on the album. And it was a track that him and Okai did called Mind, Body, and Soul. And we just continued working on it and turned it into like a Haitian house song. Um, who else? Kendra Foster, who used to sing with D'Angelo and all these other folks. Like these are amazing, amazing artists. And she's on the track. She saved my life, which gives a homage to female DJs. And I remember she came over my house and we just went over different melodies, and it was the magic happened in that way. We have Pizira from South Africa. So we're very intentional because I wanted to give homage to the roots of Afro house music. And I was like, I have to have a South African artist. And we actually worked at a nonprofit together. He ran like the Rites of Passage program. But he was just, I was like, you're a dope singer and artist. He's like, yes, this is what I do. My CISA, blah, blah, blah. So we worked it out. And the track is called Kokoti. And he really tapped into his native language. What the song means for him. And he had a variety of songs that he was working on. So we were like, let's take one of those songs, and that's how Kokoti developed. So those just an example of a few artists. We have Mia Luxana and Jean-Marie Brignol. Jean-Marie is a percussionist too, traditional Haitian percussionist. So he provided a rhythm. Mia, she's a beautiful singer, and that's the track Tonight We Fly. A lot of people like that one. That was the latest, yeah, the last track that we did. And then Okai, he's an MC vocalist, so he's sprinkled throughout the full album, but he gives like that energy and that joy, and a little hip hop vibe and poetry vibe too. So it was an incredible project to work with all these dope artists. Yeah.
For folks who aren't DJs or go to the usual spots to buy music, where can people find your music?
Yeah, on my website, www.oyasound.com, but also right now the album's on Bandcamp. Some of the individual tracks are on TrackSource from its original release, and then I'm going to put out the album through TrackSource as well. But right now, the full album, and you also get 9 instrumentals. We didn't have instrumentals before. There's 8 tracks, but we also added a bonus track called Sound the Alarm, which is more, it's house, but it has hip hop lyrics to it. Um, and it's very just like, it's a social commentary, yeah, on what's happening in the world called Sound the Alarm. So when you purchase the album, you get that bonus track as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely link the album so people can hear it.
Thank you.
It was so dope to get the backstory. And I'd love to hear more about your vision for Oya Sound. It's like it's when you go to the website, it feels very much like a collective. And I'm just curious, like how what's your highest vision for what?
Yeah. So Oya Sound originally started just as me as a DJ, and it was my sort of moniker for my brand. Oya is a Nigerian Yoruba deity that represents transformation. She's a fierce warrior. She guards the ancestral realm. And when I first got into the scene as a DJ, I was doing like my own events with my own community of like dancers and friends. Then slowly but surely over time, I started getting booked and making some money. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Um, but then I saw a lot of disparities in the electronic music scene. Um, very owned and controlled by white men and or industry labels, etc. But I didn't really see representations of people that looked like me. But I know there's a lot of, whether it's female DJs, whether it's black female DJs, whether it's black DJs, in different instances. I just really want to see people like me. And, of course, there's pioneers, there's folks that I followed, club to, and danced with at their parties. But I was very intentional in creating my own stamp within the scene as a strong Black woman who could do this music. As well as any of my counterparts, male, female, black, white, what have you. So at that time, I was also going through a spiritual transformation, and Oya just resonated with me as what she represented. So I named my brand Oya Sound. Then it developed to me, obviously, be a music producer and then an event curator because I also held my own parties. So I see it more now as a lifestyle brand. It also developed into a small label because I produced everything independently. I also do have about 10 years worth of work in terms of academia spaces or my own scholarship around this music and traditional Haitian and African diasporic rhythms, culture, art, and spirituality. So, yeah, Oya Sound sort of encapsulates all that. And depending on the project, I'll have different like partners or collaborators. Yeah.
Nice.
So you spoke about event curation, and obviously, we think a lot about that with our Elements
Yeah.
community, of which you graced us.
Yeah.
And as someone that produces events, as someone that travels the world and DJs all over the place, what do you consider the essential elements of a good party?
Ooh, great question. First thing that came to mind is vibe, right? Just a good vibe. Um, in the underground New York scene, when I got into the house scene, we made any space happen. It could be a hole in the wall, a black box, but it was the energy, the vibe in that space. Of course, a really good sound system. And then just a really clear vision of what your event represents. Like asking yourself, what do you want people to walk away with? Right? When I did my event, Brooklyn Mecca, it was like a one off here and there originally in terms of like the concept of it. Then it turned into 6 years, right? Like once a month, maybe every 2 weeks, different iterations. But I've always said that I wanted people to leave their inhibitions at the door and just get free, right? The same feeling I would get as a dancer or a house head. That's what I want people to walk away with, but also tapping into their own spirit, their own roots, whatever it is, right? And just when they leave, they feel cleansed. So something to that effect, like what is really like the vision or what do you want people to walk away with? So when they go home, they have this like healing effect, right? Or the next day, they can't stop talking about it, right? The music was good. They met their husband, they met their girlfriend, they met their partner, they met their best friend. Like, just really a space where even if there isn't food, like you're willing to break bread outside of this space. You're willing to build a movement, whether you're conscious of it or not. But this is your family that you could tap into, right? So vibe, sound system. intention,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think those are the top three for me. I think the space or physical space itself, you can make magic anywhere. Um, yeah, I think, as a global diaspora, we've had parties outdoors, indoors, different spaces, and especially as house heads, we create the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, we create the space. So yeah.
Um, I know you've been part of the scene for a while,
Yeah.
so I'm curious to know, have you seen any changes in the scene as to where we are now, and how do you see the scene now?
Mm. One thing that I'm seeing a lot is lack of ownership. I just remember back in the day, like you knew where you would go for a party, right? You had the party, this is a club for the party. And there's history there, right? There's a vibe there. I wasn't part of like Paradise Garage days, but that's an example of like there's a whole experience in this space for years. I don't really sense that anymore. And to be transparent, gentrification, lack of putting our resources together. A lot of us are siloed. A lot of us are competitive for no reason. So I think over the years, especially if we've gone through a pandemic, et cetera, it unveiled some of the issues. There are people's issues, right? That translate in all industries of lack of finances, knowledge around financial literacy, ownership of space. Um, yeah, so a lot of spaces have closed down or, were unable to maintain. But especially in the power of the house scene, it what boggles me is that we are in the hundreds, the thousands, regardless of the subgenre of house. If we were to mobilize as a people across ethnicities, races, because house is open to all, but just that commonality of the music, if we were able to really, really put our money in and mobilize as a movement, we could own buildings, we could own blocks. And that's what I'm seeing the change, especially in Brooklyn, New York. A club space could be a whole factory block. When did it develop? Who developed it? But supposedly this is EDM, techno, house every weekend. Hundreds of people online. Tickets are beyond $20, but people will pay it for whichever EDM artist. But in our Afro house, deep house, soulful house, our genres, right, that have a long legacy within the house music scene, we still can't get it together today.
Yeah.
So there's a formula, and it takes time. It's various people on your team. We need an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because not everybody knows real estate.
Yeah.
Not everyone knows law. Not everyone, is an educator. Some people are just artists. We just want to do the art already. But if you have a dope and just amazing team and you intentionally pick and choose who has the skill set and the assets, you're building a movement. You're building an ecosystem. But people are worried about who's with who's supporting who on Facebook, especially Facebook. I am tired of house heads on Facebook. Please stop. I don't know what's happening in the past couple of years, but I don't even want to turn on social media, especially Facebook, because everyone's complaining. And I don't know about what. It makes no sense. They complain about this DJ. They complain about this venue. We hardly even have spaces anymore. Just stop. Just stop. And we deserve good quality. We deserve it.
Yeah.
We deserve it. And we need long-term investors and sponsors,
Mm-hmm.
for those who are the legends, who are the pioneers, the ones that run parts of the industry of this house scene, who are distributors of sub labels that you don't even know that this larger entity is a distributor.
Mm-hmm. Talk about
And we can't find a club, a home for this type of music in New York City alone. I'm talking about New York, but I'm sure in Chicago and Detroit and Oakland, we're fighting the same battles.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we're ready to pay hundreds of dollars to go overseas for a festival, for a retreat. And when we come back home, we don't know when the next party is going to be, Saturday or Sunday. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
What are we investing in? And for those who have the privilege to have money from their labels, from the label of work that they've done, you also have to give back.
Mm-hmm.
These pioneers don't even have a club of their own. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? But the pioneers are fighting against each other or staying within their silos. Not necessarily fighting, but it's not an intention. It's not their look vision forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they're receiving their blessings as they should and traveling and living over, across the seas and doing what they need to do, because we deserve that too.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't just be 5 people. I need those 5 people to be aboard, to invest every year to keep this culture alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I need the people, the patrons of these clubs. If you're going to buy drinks, if you're going to buy these tickets to see your favorite pioneer, or even go to the clubs whenever you want to, or save that money for that trip or for that retreat that you know is happening every year, there needs to be a savings. There needs to be a fund for the people who are aging out,
Mm-hmm.
who may not have health insurance. Let's talk about this infrastructure, people, and for the next generation coming in, instead of critiquing them for not playing the classics, or DJs playing too many of the classics, or the same gospel house. Facebook, I'm telling you, all day, all night. Everyone's an expert about DJ, but you don't even know how to mix 2 songs together. Respect the art. I respect you as a dancer. You respect us as DJs. This is part of that ecosystem I'm talking about. But it's intentional when you think of the communities or where they're from, how we're pitted against each other in so many historical ways. And house is just a replication of that. But I think there's power in our community that this could be a real strong movement. But it takes collectively everyone with different skill sets, different assets, different pockets of money, investors, this concept of DEI. Where is it in-house? Invest in us. Invest in us. Don't just take us from the communities and put us on a pedestal. And then if we're not the hottest trend, you don't hear that or see that person again.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'm seeing in house music, both with females and male.
That is a call to action. And
I could go on.
I appreciate
I
that
could go on.
so much. And it's so right for us because our music is about community and collectivism and the things that we experience on these dance floors and the healing. And so there are I have a lot of faith that there are the capabilities, and I get really inspired by young people. I mean, we've been to spaces and places, and we come back and we're like, okay, how do we figure this out? How do we do this in Oakland? And so, there's definitely a lot that you gave us to chew on, and I think that there is a way for our ecosystems in these different places and spaces because the passion is so strong.
Oh my goodness. And when you talk about younger people, they're obviously the future, right? They're more tapped into technology and what's going to happen with the evolution of technology so fast that you need a young person on your team. When I talk about this ecosystem, it has to be intergenerational, and we have to work together. We have to. There's amazing models of what these young people are doing, whether it's in house or even hip hop or especially Afro beats, right? And they're doing it. They're doing it. They're doing it.
Tell us who's inspiring you right now.
Wow, who's inspiring me? You know what? I think I'm getting re-inspired because I was originally inspired by Detroit, deep tech. But I just love what I'm seeing now with a collective of folks, underground and black, period. Like that alone is dope. But I also see their influence around the world, right? And reshaping and reclaiming techno music. And also being in these spaces or shared spaces with other artists who are known for techno as well, but just bringing it back to the roots of Detroit. That's inspiring right now because I'm sort of in that headspace for like my next production, just more of a deep tech vibe. Yeah.
Well, again, I really appreciate, you being here with us. Definitely an incredible set last night.
Thank you. You
I
too.
Really, yeah.
Both of you. I got my dance on. I got my whole life. And it was such a beautiful reunion. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a fan and more of a fan now that I know more about you. And that's, really what this platform is about. I mean, people come and, we have guests and people only see them at the party.
Right.
They don't know too much about the person aside from the party. So it was great to hear you speak and really learn more about you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yes. It's an honor. You're one of the pioneers here in Oakland and California. So it's an honor to spend with you. Nina, you're my sister. I'm so happy and proud. The energy that you bring to the dance floor is so fresh and so unique. And with the both of you, that's that heart-centered space that it's just been missing. So this was just a resurgence, reaffirmation that there's this beautiful, beautiful growth within house music. And your team, oh my gosh, shout outs to your team. They worked hard, but with a smile on their face. Yes. Elements is so amazing. It's so amazing. So I'm honored to have played. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was such an honor, and we needed that healing last night. We've lost some great, amazing community members. Shout out to our brother Soul Nubian.
Yeah, see by you.
Who we honored, my brother Endu, and so I just am grateful that you knew what to do. You came in and you brought the healing that people needed, and we've been seeing it online. We've been hearing, getting messages, just how profound, how beautiful your contribution was, and I'm just glad we finally made it happen.
Yes,
You've been on the vision board, girl. And hopefully this won't be your last. You can't wait 10 years before you come back to Oakland.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.